It's Kasia from Tarot Map, and this is my video in our Dark Times Tarot series that I'm doing with Maha from Maha's Treasure Box and Elise from Wild Moon Woman. I'm pretty sure you all know those two beautiful ladies, but if not, I will link their channels below, and also Maha's introduction to the series, which will be linked in the description box, and the first video which Elise has done already, and it's also there for you to check it out. We have based a lot of our conversation that we had before that series on this book, Care of the Soul by Thomas Moore. I highly recommend this book. I have read it actually many years ago, and then Maha reminded me of existence of this book, and I went back and read it again. And it's a fascinating, beautiful book. And when we think of dark times, what are they? Why do we feel them? And what's happening to us when we go through those dark night of the soul, people often call it. These are feelings, the dark times of the soul. We talk about feelings and complaints that kind of can be described as emptiness, meaninglessness, a vague depression. So obviously there has to be a distinction between maybe clinical depression when sometimes there is just physical imbalance that needs to be addressed. These ones are more like this melancholy and feeling sad and meaningless and depressed, but you are able to come out of it yourself. Disillusionment about marriage, family, relationships, society, loss of values, yearning for personal fulfillment, hunger for spirituality, ritual, stuff like that. So all these symptoms kind of show a loss of the soul, or a loss of a piece of us that is yearning and hauntingly wanting something deeper from our lives. And usually those dark times come and go. You never really kind of cured of them, because as Thomas More states, this is like a piece of our soul that's when it wants to experience everything that's possible, and that's how it also creates space to experience those things, and also how these dark times propelling us in our spiritual evolution, and how when we allow them and embrace them, they deepen our understanding of what it is to be a human. So with the dark times of the soul, that's a little bit, to me, it's this onion effect. So you peel a layer and you kind of feel like, okay, I dealt with it, and then something else comes in some time, and then you deal with that, and then something else comes. It's always like going deeper and deeper and deeper, and we are like galaxies, we are like cosmos. So you never know when that's going to finish. You're never going to be fixed and perfect, and maybe thank God for that, because that would be really kind of fucking boring. Sorry. But I wanted to read up something which I actually marked the first time I read that book, just a very short fragment of that book, which talks about how there's a little room for sadness in our society. So taking a hygienic approach to the psyche, we want to live and love successfully. Deviations from these hygienic expectations are characterized as disorders. There is little room for sadness. Today, Tristan would have to be called depresso, because we have clinicalized the soul's sad longings as depression, for which we seek chemical cures. But this medieval tale profoundly satisfies our need to be positively in touch with the unavoidable tendency of the soul to get itself into love trouble. The story honors love's pathos, and like a homeopathic remedy, it plugs the familiar strains of sadness we know from experience. So that sentence, that Tristan from Tristan and Isolde, would have to be called depresso. I remember reading it that many years ago and thinking like, oh my God, that's so true. Like, we are not we kicked out death from our society. We want to kick out old age, sickness and sadness, and anything that doesn't fit the magazine illusion of what human life is all about, and how huge that illusion is. I don't have to tell anyone, do I? So in this series, we were thinking with the girls that each of us has certain ways of navigating ourselves through those times. And sometimes the most perfect way is just not to do anything. It's to really like kind of dwell in that sadness, to cry it out, to lie in bed, hide under the duvet, and do nothing. But other times, there are simple ways that each of us personally finds helpful to move smoothly through that times without actually, avoiding those times, or putting them under the carpet, or not facing those sadness and these feelings that are kind of boiling up within us. Um, and I think each one of us went through many dark times of the soul and dark nights of the soul. I remember a few very distinct, huge transitionary moments in my life that would definitely go under the name of dark times of the soul. And each and one of them led to some amazing discoveries afterwards. So going through that, what usually was quite challenging, but afterwards, when you kind of peeled that layer of the onion, I did feel like a new human being, like a richer, more beautiful, more experienced human being, and a human being with more compassion and with more heart. So my first there were many before, but the first one that propelled me onto the path of spiritual evolution and really embracing the invisible side of my psyche in my life was when I was living in London. I finished university and I moved to London, and I was working at Starbucks, selling coffees, learning English. I didn't speak English very well then. And I was yearning. I was like feeling really empty. I remember not feeling like I fit in. I still was the citizen B from, we weren't in the European Union, and they could stop me at the border and not let me into the UK if they wanted to. I had to buy school to be able to even stay in England. I only could work 20 hours a week. There were a lot of regulations and shit that I had to think about, and that made me feel really insecure, and also like my self-worth wasn't very high. I was experiencing really a lot of kind of depressive thoughts, and at the same time, I finished university and then working in a coffee shop where I couldn't speak English very well, so I always felt like I couldn't communicate and share what I really wanted to. I always felt like I was free with the vocabulary and all the, the language issues. So slowly it was really hitting me. And I remember going to bookshops a lot and reading like self-help books, spiritual books in the bookshops because I couldn't afford to buy new books. And at some point, I signed up for a meditation course. I remember I was always interested in meditation, and I signed up for a meditation course with Sri Chinmoy. There was a very well-working meditation group in London. They were doing introductory courses, and then if you wanted to, you could deepen your meditation with the group. And I remember how from that depressed, really sad, really dissatisfied with my life, I was drinking, I was smoking, from that person who was so like yearning for something more. After doing that introductory meditation course and actually going deeper and meeting up with that group, something shifted in me. I don't know what happened until now, but that dark night of the soul led me to my what I call spiritual awakening. And what that was for me was this experience of enormous peace and enormous strength, but in softness. I changed my jobs. I started looking after children. I worked for two families, and that people from meditation, working with children for them was one of the most important jobs you can do, because you are able to, like shape and work with like this pureness of a child, with pure mind, with pure heart. So that was I was really kind of happy to be doing that job. I found value in what I was doing, and I signed up for yoga. I stopped smoking, I stopped drinking, still living in the old environment of mine, with my old friends who were smoking and drinking, and like parties around me. And I was like, I don't know, I was out of that world for maybe it lasted 3 months. It was a long time. I remember people at the bus stop in London coming up to me and just saying, "Can I stand in your presence, because you just have such beautiful energy?" And I don't know what that was. I haven't done anything to deserve it, or I haven't really worked, and like I haven't done anything to do it. I think I was just willing to accept and really open and curious about all of this, and at the same time doing regular meditation and constantly kind of shifting my attention from different things in life to another things. So stopping smoking or stopping drinking and still having people to smoke around me wasn't any issue for me. I stopped eating meat then. I started reading different things. I was putting much more attention to my body and what I put into it. It was a huge shift and a huge it was amazing. I never felt that way ever again. It's a bit like, oh, please. But I totally understand what it did to me, and how I was never the same person ever again after that. So then also being in Australia, another example was, broken heart, love issues and stuff, but also this huge creative awakening that came over me. That one was also connected to like allowing myself to really suffer from unfulfilled love and stuff, but also allowing myself to create. This is where I started to create wands. Who would have thought 6 years ago or 7 years ago? Long time. But the creative awakening was also, it was different from the spiritual awakening, but it was very empowering and very amazing to go through. Also in Australia, I have met Amma, another spiritual awakening. It's like that this one felt like another layer of the onion after that initial London experience. I did a lot of volunteering there. We were feeding homeless people. I felt powerful connection to Amma, like also kind of really focused on service to other people, and how I use my time and how I can actually help other people. That suddenly became a big focus of mine. So also going through the dark night of the soul that led to me wanting to be a better person and to use my life in service to other people as well, in whatever capacity I can do it. So another amazing time was when I went to Vipassana for the first time for 10-day retreat, and also that realization that the pain is within me, but as much as it's in my body, it's also in my mind, and how I can really experienced how I can shift the attention and how I can shift my pain, and that the pain is there and my mind like holds on to it. But when I work with my mind, suddenly it doesn't hold on to it, and the pain can shift and disappear. And really, it was such an amazing, brilliant experience. So working with pain and not really avoiding pain, but like kind of tuning into it and focusing onto it disperses the pain a little bit, because the pain is you as well. So chopping it off or getting rid of it doesn't really work very well, because it's like killing a part of you which shouts for attention, really. So if you have any of those meaningful, interesting experiences that you went through after experiencing Dark Night of the Soul and feeling really lost and depressed and sad, I'd love to hear from you, and uh, just join in or write in the comments and make a video about it. And now I would like to share a few ways that helped me a lot to, again, navigate through those times and to use these times to my benefit and to benefit of other people around me. So right now also I wanted to say that I'm pretty, stable and pretty happy. So I haven't experienced a lot of intense shifts recently. I have experienced the quite a, as Elise, Four of Cups feeling, and that kind of meaninglessness, and that feeling of like, what's my life really worth? Like, what is anything I do important to anyone but me? That kind of feeling of separation and dissatisfaction with how the society is, and how everything I do seems just pointless because the world is fucked. And so that feeling, that's exactly that dark time. And there are ways that I found work for me quite well, to allow me to actually even find strength to face this and to embrace it. Um, so what I do very often when I feel I'm kind of really sluggish and low energy, dissatisfied, feel empty, feel sad, feel melancholic. First of all, I check if I don't expect my period. But it's so true. Very often I missed it, and then I go, oh my god, that was my period. So sometimes I feel it and sometimes I don't. So please, if you are female, just check with your biological clock, because very often our hormones just go like bang. And then we just need, good food, soft teas, and tasty sweets, and just enjoy our peace and quietude. But when we go through the dark night of the soul, which is non-period related, I found what helps me a lot is actually listening to wise people. I don't know if you know the website Sounds True. There you can buy lectures and different courses. It's all like audio, and also YouTube, for free. I love listening to Clarissa Pinkola Estes, to Caroline Myers, to Thomas Moore, to John O'Donoghue. There's David White. There's so many amazing speakers that when I listen to them and they speak about these feelings, it helps me to process and understand myself a little bit more, and to give myself a fucking break, because sometimes we're like so focused on things, fixing that, and feeling better and getting out of it. And I'm the first like to be judged guilty of that, because I'm usually quite positive, and that kind of, and impatient. So like, fuck, do I have to like go through Dark Night of the Soul for the next 2 weeks? Oh my god, like like I want to get rid of it, like. But sometimes you cannot get rid of it, even when you try very hard, use all those magical things that I will be talking about. Sometimes, as I said, the best way is to just dwell in it and fucking cry and be sad about it, and be sad about you being sad, and allow yourself to be sad. Treat yourself as you would your best friend, just give yourself empathy. But those lectures from Sounds True, or from YouTube, or from TEDx, any type of spiritual kind of inspiration that speaks to you, I found it helps me a lot. I often work vibrationally, because I believe that vibrational medicine is something that fits my understanding of the body, of my energetic body as well, and makes sense to me. So for me, working with crystals or crystal wands or crystal skulls, it's not just holding pretty object, but I strongly believe that the crystals do resonate with us. It's a two-way street, as my teacher Naisha Zian says. And there is this underlying very subtle work that you can do when you work with crystals. And again, this is not for everybody, but I'm just wired this way. I believe crystals have changed my life, and they do teach me over and over again a lot of things on a very subconscious level. It's not very conscious. It's not like my Sophie just whispers into my ear, do this and do this. But I notice as soon as I start working with respect and intention of, for example, understanding something or allowing myself to feel it or to bring it to the surface, these things happen. So it's not something that I'm just like inventing. Another way of very kind of vibrational approach when I feel sad, like that chakra balancing. So like using those energy chimes that I have, and I have 2 sets of those, and just playing them. Even now, my breath starts to slow down, and you just go into this interesting space, like liminal space, when suddenly the now is what's here, and you stop going into the fearful thoughts, you stop going into the what ifs, you just start focusing on what's here. So yes, I highly recommend any type of vibrational medicine and vibrational balancing when you in the dark night of the soul. It's not to fix it, but often the emotional body and the energetic body just starts shifting with the sound or with flower remedies. And you can use flower remedies like that, with like few drops of those in a glass of water. You can use flower remedy cards and just kind of ask the spirit of the plant to help you. I know it sounds maybe, for some people like totally lulu and woo woo, but I did find for myself, like when I deeply trust into that huge connection that might not be seen with those eyes, but I believe it's there, everything seems to be working for you. So these chimes, like balancing the essences, crystals or crystal wands, even wearing a wand, even charging up your tool with that particular quality that you would like, or you feel like you need to, if it's strength, or if it's acceptance, or if it's sadness, or if it's allowing stuff to come up and have courage to face it. And charging those tools, magical tools, that's how they called, because you direct your energy, you direct your focus onto that tool, and then this tool is kind of like supportive of that particular energy for this time. And so these things are like vibrational shifts or asoma bottles. Very nice. Like recently, I really felt a big shift using my 2 bottles that I have. So sometimes they can be very profound. Like I remember a time when I used mustard, Bach flower essence, and it was instant. And mustard is for that feeling of, I don't know what's wrong with me, I feel so shit, but I have no reason for it, that's one of those symptoms of like and I remember taking mustard and totally kind of getting like as if somebody was like washing the window and I could see clearly, and it was like instant. Sometimes it's not as profound, it takes time, but that trust that things are okay when we go through these times, it's very helpful. It's that suspended motion of the hanged man, you know. And another thing that I personally use and probably is most helpful to me is astrology and tarot. With astrology, I have been studying astrology since 2005, and I've been studying in Australia with very amazing teachers. And you know, I can say I know astrology at quite an high intermediate level, I'd say. You know, I'm not a pro, like a world pro, but I'm good at it. And I have to say that very often when we go through the dark night of the soul, um, there are certain transits that are involved, and especially I feel chironic transits. So when there's any aspect to your natal chiron, or if the chiron is aspecting any of your planets, um, we often feel that there is this, oh, something is happening. Very often chiron has to do with our limitations and blockages and some karmic stuff that we dealing with our wounding and with that which we want to reject in life. I actually offer in my Etsy shop reading about Chiron. I check where Chiron is in your chart and what it aspects and what's happening to it. And I do a tarot reading as well. So not only astrology, but also tarot. And this reading, I think it's very amazing. And very often when we go through some kind of dark night of the soul, Chiron is involved, because this is a wounded healer, and that is this energy which brings healing also. This is something which we get born with. We have that wound which we heal over our lifetime, and then use that wound as a gift and become healers to other people who might be faced with similar wounding. So this Chiron energy and Chiron transits, even recently I was feeling really bad for 2 days, and I checked the astrological ephemeris, and you know, like the sun was in opposition to my Chiron. And whenever Chiron is involved, we do have this sense of wounding. Something comes to the surface. If it's opposition to the sun brings light onto that wound. And if there is still something to accept or look into, you know, that will come. That clarity will like bring it up. So with transits and astrological happenings, what's fascinating about it is that we know it's going when it ends, and when it starts and when it ends. Everything shifts in astrology and nothing stays there forever. Astrology really mirrors life in this way. So you can always take a look on their website, which is called astro.com. You can get a reading from somebody who knows astrology. You can check stuff for yourself, you know, just see what transits you're going through, because there's always something, but there's always more important things and less important things, or shorter things and longer things. Some transits last for a few years, some transits last for a few days. The chironic transits will, you know, mark your kind of life, but also where your Chiron is and what house it lies in. It's very important as a general also pointer towards your own personal wounding, and probably where you limit yourself, or where throughout your life that was the lesson which you were always like kind of shit, it's this again, you know. So for me, for example, my Chiron is in Aries in the 10th house on my MC, on my vocational point. And until I was 35 or so, my main problem in life was, what am I to do with my life? I have no purpose. I have no idea what my purpose is. I have no idea what job I should do. I'm not good at anything. And when I kind of faced it and really went through this dark nights of the souls, those moments which I was telling you about before, and when I went through healing my Chiron, I suddenly felt like, oh my God, this is my life purpose. There's many life purposes and I'm doing them just fine, you know. And right now I'm like offering life purpose readings to people when this was my kind of wounding, and now that wounding became a healing, because I'm seen as a vocational point and Aries is a pioneer. It's an energy of inventing new jobs, inventing yourself a job, of breaking the rules, of going for it. It's very interesting that when I embraced that and started doing it in my life, not just thinking about it, doing it in my life, it all fell into place, and I didn't have to struggle much more and invent stuff. Tarot is another way of really, I'm a Libran moon and Leo ascendant, Sagittarian sun. I love art. So tarot to me is not only a way of like predicting my future or digging deep into my psyche, but also I believe that beauty heals. So for me, surrounding myself with beautiful objects and being able to look at pictures and pictures that speak to me. So I pick the decks that I love, obviously. That's really healing. So whenever I'm down, tarot is always there for me, and it's always taking me deeper and giving me courage to look at my situation from another perspective, um, from a different angle. Sometimes it's like, you know, points out what's happening. Sometimes it points out what might happen if you change your perspective a little bit. But oracle decks and tarot decks are definitely amazing way to deal with sadness and with melancholy, and have helped me numerous times to go through these dark nights of the soul. My favorite decks for working during those times are very often not only soft decks like, you know, Tarot of Transformation, which I love, and which is a very healing deck, but also those decks that give me punch, like the Goddess Tarot or Crone Tarot. I love the Tarot of the Femme Erotique, and we'll link a video below that I am showing this deck, so I'm not going to repeat it here because this video is getting quite long. In any case, I'm just hoping that some of these ways you also use, and if you have any other specific ways that you do, please share with us, because I'd love to hear, and I think a lot of people might find it inspirational as well. I also wanted to mention a ritual as a way of embracing any time in your life, celebrating the good times and wanting to understand and shift the dark times. A ritual is a very powerful way to help yourself to allow yourself the space of the sacred experiencing whatever you're going through. And I believe our society would really gain a lot from installing ritual to its proper place. And a ritual brings tangible shifts of energy, and it's a part to me of vibrational medicine. Ritual coexists with intention and with focusing, directing your energy with a form of magic tools, or with form of magic items. Magic as, you know, just the word magic, with form of tools or with help of items. They get more and more magical the more often you use it, or the more meaning they have for you. But you can also do ritual without anything really, but for example like lighting a candle and setting your intention straight. But try to do so any sort of ritual that that comes to mind, and I will share maybe some of the rituals in another video, maybe in response to Elise video or to Maha video. I'll see how I go, but I think for now that's it. And I highly recommend this book if you don't know it. It's very beautiful. Also, there is this psychological game which is called Satori. It's the about the radical forgiveness. And this game is a psychological game, and it's also a very cool way to approach what the fuck is going on with me with your friends in a safe environment, when you can actually share openly what hits you, and forgive yourself for feeling whatever you are feeling. So that Satori game, it's also very cool. So if you ever if you didn't know it, just check it out and play with it. It's really cool. Okay, thank you for watching. I hope you share about your dark times of the soul, and how you maybe use tarot or other ways to help yourself to, navigate yourself through those times, like Six of Swords. There is this boat, and somehow, you're slowly navigating out of the biggest ship. Okay, thanks for watching, and if you're going through a dark night of the soul, just trust that it's okay. It's just part of life. It will be fine. Thank you for watching. See you soon. Bye.